Welcome back to Graceful Finesse podcast. I'm your host, Greg Archer. I hope that my podcast will be an inspiration for you to be a better version of yourself and, of course, be a blessing to you. I'll be covering a wide range of topics ranging from leadership, self-care, well-being, mental health, to spirituality and faith. In this particular episode, I'll cover what I titled Wounded but Not Broken. Before I continue, please note, I may mention God sometimes because I'm a practicing Christian. Please fill in the blank with whatever you believe in when I say God. So back to our topic, wounded but not broken. Life happens. Life sometimes is not fair. If you've lived long enough, you would have experienced life happen to you or someone you know, a friend, a relation, or even a neighbor. But in whatever way life tries to mess with you, you can turn it around for good by the way you respond to it. It's all about our response. I like the proverbial phrase which says, when life throws you a lemon, be creative, make lemonades. Currently, a lot of companies are forced to lay off employees. These are long-serving employees, dedicated employees, excellent employees. And the situation have left so many of them feeling wounded, feeling dropped, and in extreme cases, feeling very bitter. I've spoken to some of them. I know how they feel. I'm dedicating this episode of my podcast for this special group of people who feel dropped, who feel disappointed, who feel bitter. And I want to announce to you, you can be wounded and not broken. You can be struck down and not destroyed. You can be pressed down and not crushed. It depends on how you approach the situation. It depends on how you respond to what life throws at you. Remember, when life throws you a lemon, be creative and make lemonades. I can assure you, friends, there is something about you that cannot be crushed. No matter what comes your way, no matter what life throws your way, there is something about you, there is the spirit inside of you that cannot be crushed. Keep holding on. God is a God of justice. He will make your wrongs right and pay you back for any injustice, and of course lift you from your low places. I remember a story in the scriptures, and stay with me with this story. It's about a young man named Mephibosheth. We can call him Mephi. He was the son of Jonathan and grandson of King Saul. He was heir, royalty, with all the bright futures. He was well loved and well brought up, well groomed in the palace. But at 5 years, life happened to him. In one day, his father, grandfather were killed in the battle. And a messenger came running to the palace to break the news, and most importantly, to inform the palace that the army were on their way to come wipe the entire family of Saul. There was chaos. There was absolute chaos in the palace. The nurse who cared for Mephi picked him up in that chaos, running down the house in panic to save the child. But as she ran down the staircase, she tripped and dropped Mephi. Both of his legs were broken and he was crippled and could never walk again. The rest of his life he lived in hiding, in exile, in a poor slum, in a place called Lodebar. When David became king, one day he had a strong desire to be good to any descendant of Saul. After a thorough research, King David's servants reported back to him that there was a grandson of Saul who was crippled in both feet and could not walk. King David ordered to bring Mephi for a face-to-face meeting. The palace officials sprang to action and found Mephi and carried him to the palace to meet David. You can imagine, when David came out, he saw Mephibosheth coiled up on the floor, frail, weak. Mephi was everything unroyal. He was so afraid and embarrassed at the same time. He told David that he was dropped by his nurse at 5 and that his life has never been the same ever. David showed him kindness and restored back to him all the lands that belonged to his father and grandfather. And also, he gave him staff to farm the land and bring him the proceeds. David also restored his place in the palace, restored him back to his place in the palace, and gave him a seat at the king's table. What a story. A story of a man that was dropped. A story of a man that was crushed, wounded, but not broken. The moral of this story. 1. Whatever happened to you does not change your value and worth. Mephibosheth was crippled, forced to live in hiding, but still, that did not change who he was. He was still royal. I like the analogy of my friend. He took a new crisp €100 note, asked us what the value was, and we said €100. He then took his time, squeezed the money in his hands, so tight, and then trampled on it, and then he opened it and asked us what the value was. At this time, the money has been so ruffled and crumpled, and our answer was €100. So he went ahead to tell us that despite squeezing and crumpling and trampling on the €100 note, the value remained unchanged. Friends, despite the pressures of life, sometimes life trample on us, sometimes life squeeze on us, sometimes life crumple us. Despite the troubles you face, despite what life brings your way, your value and worth does not diminish. Take that message home. Take that message with you. Whatever comes your way, whatever the pressures of life does not diminish your value. You're still valuable. Your worth does not diminish. Moral number 2 of the story. People with good intentions can drop us. We could be crippled by well-meaning individuals or by other people's mistakes, like in the case of Mephi. The nurse had all good intention. The nurse meant well for Mephi. She meant to take Mephibosheth to safety, but in the process of doing that, she dropped him. Think about that. Think about times people could have dropped us, not intentionally. Third moral of the story: do not give up. Quitters never win and winners never quit. Be a winner and never quit. Be patient and wait on God's time. He will show up and help you at the right minute, at the right second. He's never late. And that takes me to the fourth moral of the story. The situation you are in is temporary. A change is on the way. A force of restoration that will take you from your low and dark places to where you will fly in bright colors, as was the case of Mephibosheth. He spent literally all his years from 5 in squalor, but one day the king remembered him. The moral number 5: King David showed kindness and empathy. He descended to the level of Mephibosheth despite his kingship. Wherever you are in the ladder of life or societal status, kindness and empathy make you stand out. Leaders with empathy are leaders with great followership. You can be that leader that will show empathy. You can be that leader that will show kindness, like David, to someone who probably doesn't even deserve it. And the last moral that we will take today, moral number 6: sometimes you are so frail that you cannot carry yourself. It is okay to ask for help. It's okay to accept help. Look around you for individuals you can trust and share your situation with. They may have the answer you need. They may be the answer you need. On the other hand, on the flip side, you can look out for a friend. Look around for co-workers. Look out for a neighbor that seems to be struggling, and be the shoulder that will carry them and carry their frailty. In the story we just went through, the story of Mephi, he couldn't carry himself from Lodebar to the palace. People carried him there. And when he arrived at the palace, his life changed. He became royalty again, and he became boss to those that carried him. I will close out by sharing that I have experienced being pressed down by people I trusted, people I was entrusted to, including people I sacrificed for, folks that I poured out my life into, that I mentored, that I sacrificed for. I felt alone, frail, vulnerable, helpless, name it, just like Mephibosheth, and like the thousands of employees who have been laid off lately. But I can assure you that God of justice paid me back for all the injustices. And if you don't give up, your payback is on the way. I can assure you that your payback is right on the corner. Thank you for your time today. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with a friend. This podcast can help a friend. It can change the life of a friend. Please feel free to share it and let me know if there are any specific topics you want me to cover, or if you want to reach out to me, please contact me at day.gracefully.finesse.podcast@gmail.com or my Instagram handle at gracefully.finesse. All the contact information can be seen in the details of the podcast. Thank you again, and until I come your way next week, continue to live your very best life. Have a wonderful rest of the day.